Well, hey, Vision. Okay, so feeling good this morning? But we're giving away some stuff, so make sure you don't zone out at all. Okay, we're giving away some Journey Vision gear. That's going to be fun. Before we get into part 2 of this series, though, let me kind of piggyback on what Mike said about volunteers. You know, our church runs on the strength and passion of volunteers at our church. So if you serve here, or if you're interested in like getting for more information or possibly test driving, make sure you're here tonight, 5 o'clock for Impact, because our volunteers, they go above and beyond. We even had a Sunday this past winter where our primary drummer that day was running late, so we had to have somebody fill in. So a lady named Paula said, okay, I'll do it. We don't have any drumsticks available right now, but I'll use whatever I can find. And Paula, now she promised me that those were clean. Okay, those are not from the clean team. They're from cleaning out coffee pots. So hey, whatever. We just got music. We need music. So, but here at Vision, truly, our volunteers, they go above and beyond. If you say, man, I want to be a part of something like that. I want to play the drums with toll brushes. No, but seriously, if you want to come out tonight at 5, there's no long-term commitment. You just come and hang out with us and hear about volunteering here at Vision. Now we're continuing our Journey series, and if you missed last week's, I want to encourage you, get online and watch week 1, because what this series is based on is the opportunity to speak into somebody who's heading out on their life journey. If I had a chance really to represent God and sit down with you and say, okay, Tommy, I know you're getting ready to go away, and like Tommy, he's leaving in a year to go to college. So I feel honored that God gives me a chance to pour into him. This series, for 16 weeks, we're almost like sitting around the campfire. And of course, if you're sitting around the campfire, you know, you got to do it, you know, with Vision chairs. And now we're giving these away tonight. So if you're here at Impact, we're giving these away. But it's like me and Tommy sitting at the campfire talking. And I'm saying, if you would only remember certain things from me in our time we spent together, remember these key, important things. Today, as we continue the stage we're calling Campfire Talks, we got this phrase. Today's title is Above All Else. Above all else. And now, is anybody in here kind of old enough to remember E.F. Hutton? Remember the commercials? When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. They're like sitting in a restaurant, and E.F. Hutton's over here, and he starts talking, and everybody stops and listens, because he like has all the knowledge about making money and retirement and all this stuff. Everybody listens when E.F. Hutton talks. When a guy named Solomon, who's the wisest man besides Jesus, when he says, okay, above all else, he's like, above all else, make sure you get this. Don't miss this. I get around the campfire and I listen. I say, okay, God, teach me what is above all else. Now, this above all else focuses on guarding something. So let's talk about guarding for a minute, because we guard things that are important to us. I mean, you know, if you rolled out to Bowling Springs, I bet you outside the Colic Mansion, they got big old gates up there saying, you know, we got something here we got to guard. We got our people. So we got our first shot here of gates. Now, you guys got that at your house? Has anybody got gates in front of their house? Big old gates, 3000 Farmhouse Lane, we don't have gates, okay? Now, but we do have things we need to protect. You might say, oh, look at the cute little puppies over there. Nice little dogs over there. You're like, whoa, okay. Whoa, they're guarding something in this place, something valuable in this place. Now, you might be going around town. I mean, like with a little boy saying, man, if you see a big old truck like this, they are guarding something important, cash, right? Cash is important, so they guard it carefully. Now this week, I don't know if you saw it or not, but one of our visionaries was over at the Panthers practice field, and they had a chance to meet Greg Olsen. Now Greg, 2 years ago, I heard this cool stat about him, and he's a tight end for the Panthers if you didn't know it. 2 years ago, Greg Olsen had this statistic about the red zone, which if you don't know football, the red zone is 20 yards and in. The stat was anytime a ball was thrown his way in his whole career up to then, he had never dropped a pass in the red zone. I'm like, that guy knows how to guard that ball and hold it like it is so vital. That's what Greg does. So in our world, when we talk about guarding stuff, we can understand about armored trucks and gates and guard dogs. The Bible's saying, above all else, guard something. Now, today, I'm going to give away some stuff that you're going to want to guard. Because if you don't have any Vision gear, you're going to love this stuff. We got hats, some backpacks, some bottles. And in fact, the way we're going to do some of these, if you got a takeaway card when you came in, take a look at it. And if in the upper left-hand corner, there's the word Viz. In the upper left-hand corner, Viz, all right, got 2 of them. So come here and you're getting a free backpack. I'll show you. You should have gotten a takeaway card. Make sure you get one next week. Okay? There you go. There you go. You're welcome. All right, now, if you got a takeaway card, and in the upper left-hand corner, there's a smiley face. Well, you're going to be smiling because you're getting a hat. So did anybody get the ones that have the smiley face in them? Smiley face, upper left-hand corner. All right, there's one. And another one right there. All right. Well, will you carry that and pass that over to her? Great. All right, now these water bottles, of course, are about refreshing people. So look in your row where the connection cards are, and if there is a sticker from Project Refreshment, there's a couple of those floating in the room somewhere. A sticker from Project Refreshment is about 1 inch by 6 inches, and these are the labels we actually, or 2 by 6. It's what we put on the bottles. We take our time. If you've got one of those or one close to you, then like steal it from your neighbor. David, you got the whole second row to yourself, man. So if it's there, then you're golden. Anybody? Nothing? Can't find it? There's one. All right. There you go. Congratulations. Yep. Anybody else see those? Can't find them yet? Can't find them yet? Oh, there's one back there. Great. Okay. And next, make sure you're here. Like I said, tonight we're giving away some chairs. Next week we're giving away a bunch of bottles. There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome. All kind of fun stuff here at Vision. We know what to guard, okay? Guard our stuff, guard our money, guard our houses. Today we're talking about guarding our heart. And in Proverbs chapter 4, this guy Solomon, he wrote about guarding your heart. Any age, any life season, guard your heart. That's what the above all else is. We're going to unpack that. So before we get to Proverbs 4, let's talk about guarding our heart and the why behind it. Why guard your heart? Because your heart truly drives what you do. And I think if you focus on this for a minute, you'll agree that sometimes things catch your heart. You ever been like watching TV and you see something on there, you're like, oh man, there's such a need right there. I wish I could help. Like it caught your heart. Or maybe, you see somebody who just broke up in a relationship and you can tell like they're crushed. Honestly, like their heart has been broken. Their will to move forward is limited by what happened to their heart. Or maybe, has anybody ever had time where you're laying in bed, and I'm not talking about just like a sleepy morning. I'm talking about a morning where you wake up and it's like, I don't have the will to go on. I don't have the will to attack life today, to go after it, or I'm so anxious about what's coming. Like I don't want to face today because of what is gripping and really crippling my heart. You say, I can relate to that. Or maybe you see someone who's in fear. You say, man, there's nothing to fear, but fear has gripped their heart. Or, on the good side of things, like here at Vision, we see people that come in and do something, and it sparks something in them to where their heart gets so excited, they can't wait to come in or serve or invite, and something has lifted their heart. So why guard our heart? Because it drives what we do. And the story you're going to hear today, not just from Solomon, but from a visionary in our church about what can grip your heart and take you down this path, or what can grip your heart and take you down God's path, it's why we guard our heart. Second thing is, what are we guarding it from? What are we guarding our heart from? And this is anywhere from our youngest kids to our oldest people. There are always going to be things that attack our heart and try to take us off path. Now this week, man, I had a cool chance to go up to Joe Gibbs Racing. Is anybody here a NASCAR fan? Anybody here an NFL fan? Okay, if you're either of those at all, then you probably heard of Joe Gibbs. Now, let me show you this picture. From up at Joe Gibbs Racing, me and Mitch and Mike went up to Joe Gibbs Racing to meet specifically with Ronaldo. Now, Ronaldo, he heads up the Game Plan for Life, which is a program for men that we're going to try to launch next year to help guys get a game plan in all these areas of their life. So we met with Ronaldo, and as we were leaving, Joe came out of his office, and we had a chance to connect with him. Remember, this is a guy who has, as a coach, won 3 Super Bowls, and as an owner has won 4 NASCAR championships. So this, honestly, is a powerful man. We had a chance to stop and talk with him, to ask him how we could even pray for him. We had a moment right there. We prayed with him. And with these two guys, let me talk about why you guard your heart. Our next picture is of Ronaldo when he played for the Redskins. He went to Notre Dame, played for the Redskins, and after, I think, 5 or 6 years with the Washington Redskins, he got a call that said, come on in and bring your playbook. You've been released. And that's literally like, you can call and say, okay, you're fired. Where to us, it's like, I'm thrown away. I'm discarded. How does that make you feel? And Ronaldo drives over to the office with his wife. He's like, I'm going to go in there and tell them. I mean, how could they not appreciate me? How could they? I mean, bitterness was threatening to overtake his heart. And his wife said, wait a second, you need to guard. She didn't use these words, but Ronaldo, you need to guard your heart about how you're going to handle the next 30 minutes. And he walks inside with more of a peace and said to his boss, thank you for the chance to have been a part of the Redskins. And instead of bitterness grabbing his heart, you could tell there was humility, there was gratitude. And in that moment, Ronaldo had no idea what was hanging in the balance because the guy who was releasing him that day was Joe Gibbs. And years later, when they reconnected, Joe said to Ronaldo, I see your heart, and I see how God's shaping you. I want you to head up the game plan for life in my organization. He had no idea what was hanging in the balance that day with his heart. Now, Joe, we look at Joe's picture. Joe has been carried off the field after a Super Bowl. Imagine having a microphone in your hands, knowing that like 1 billion people on the planet are listening to you at this moment. Joe has had to guard his heart from pride and arrogance and materialism and all that type of ego. And instead, he stepped back and said, I'm going to let Jesus have my heart. Joe's not perfect, but Joe is dedicating his life, not to racing or football, but to using resources to point people to Christ. These guys have said, okay, we know there's things out there that we got to guard our heart from. And for us in here, normal people, there's the same things. There's selfishness. There's temptations of money, temptations of sexual sin. There's pride. There's these different things that can build up in us and squeeze our heart into darkness. And God, through Solomon, says, no. You got to guard your heart. You got to be careful about anxiety and fear and loneliness because those things may come. Don't let them grip your heart and totally control the way you live. So the third thing I say then is, how do we guard it? We say, why guard our heart and what are we guarding it from? Then tell me, how do we guard it? If this is so important, if this is the above all else, how do we guard it? Well, the first thing is God's Word. That, this is not just a book. And I asked you guys through videos and texts this week, if you could, to bring a hard copy of your Bible, if you have one. If not, we got it on the screen and on your takeaway. But this is not just a book. This is the inspired Word of God. That literally God spoke this into being and gives you a chance to have it. When we get in the Bible, it can shape how we guard our hearts. I met with a couple yesterday. They're on the rocks. They're struggling, but we spoke about them opening up their Bible together, little bits of pieces at a time, and letting it shape their heart. Besides the Bible, there's prayer. Prayer simply is a communication channel. It's about talking with God. It's about letting Him shape you and speaking truth to Him about the way you feel, and literally like opening a floodgate for His power to come into your life when we pray. The third thing is through spiritual relationships. This Bible, through praying, and through spiritual relationships, whether it's conversations you have during the week with your family, with people at work, saying, I want to talk about things that matter. I want to talk about godly things. Or it's coming into vision and serving, like coming tonight to Impact. Saying, I want to hang out with some people who will help shape my heart. Or it's getting in a small group. And next week we have Group Link, where you can find out about small groups in our church and literally say, I want someone on this journey with me who will help me shape my heart. So it'll be guarded because there are things attacking it. So let's talk about how we do this. Because this Bible of mine, I've had it for years, and when I get into it, and I personally, I like a hard copy. I got it on my phone, I got my iPad, but I encourage you to at least have one hard copy of a Bible so that when you sit down and actually read it, you can use some of the kind of the habits I'm going to give you today. Because one habit that I like, you see this on this picture, when you look in my Bible at Proverbs chapter 4, you'll see that when I read it over the years, I underline things that matter, and particularly I highlight the verse in that chapter that stands out the most to me at that time. You can see that in 2010, in February, I read Proverbs chapter 4, and verse 18 stood out to me. Different times, different verses. But it's like I mentioned recently, it's so cool. There's 31 chapters. You can read one a day as it lines up to the day of the month. And any time during the year, you say, man, I don't know what to read. What do I read? Well, pick the day of the month in Proverbs. Here's the bonus. If you get in here and underline stuff and highlight stuff, I'm just being real. Has anybody ever picked up their Bible and said, God, I have no idea where to read today? I have no idea where to go, what to read, what's going to hit me. Well, some days when I feel like that, and I start flipping through, and if I happen to flip through Proverbs 4, I'm like, well, that's interesting. I underlined that, and I highlighted that, and you are attracted to certain things that mattered to you in the past, and God can use that to you in that moment. So I encourage you to do that. So today we're going to do, if you brought your Bible, we're actually going to walk through Proverbs 4 and think through. You can underline it. This last service, these students are up here underlining and highlighting, and I encourage you to do that now or during this week. But let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 4 and see what this guy Solomon said to us. All right, let's go through it. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. I tell you, in our society today, there is a lot of unsound learning. You don't have to go too far on Facebook or social media, anywhere else, to find learning that is not sound. This learning has stayed sound and it stayed solid for 2,000 years. This is sound teaching. I challenge you to trust God in that. All right, it says, when I was a boy in my father's house, still tender, and an only child of my mother, he taught me and said, lay hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you'll live. Get wisdom. He's saying, get understanding. Don't forget my words or swerve from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she'll protect you. Love her, and she'll watch over you. Remember a couple weeks ago, I talked about that verse that says, spur each other on so that we would not swerve, that we would literally have a hope that is unswerving. And Solomon is saying the same thing, saying these teachings, this wisdom I'll give you, if you hold to them without swerving, your life, honestly, is going to swerve a whole lot less. And if you're like me, there are some days it feels like life is really swerving. Your emotions, your finances, your relationships are swerving. Solomon says God's word, sound teaching, will help limit swerving in your life. So it continues. It says, wisdom, in verse 7, wisdom is supreme. Therefore get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Esteem her, she'll exalt you. Embrace her, she'll honor you. She'll set a garland of grace on your head and present you with a crown of splendor. I love this visual of a crown, because crowns honestly go to winners. Crowns go to people that are successful. And I think God, through Solomon, is saying, if you focus on these things, on this wisdom, you will have success. You will get to a spot where you will actually receive and be blessed in a way that people will look at you and say, wow, there's something special about them. And God is doing something in their life. I want that type of success. I want that type of victory, and I want that for you. So we continue. Verse 10 says, listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I mean, literally, if you take godly principles into your life, you're going to be healthier. You're going to be physically healthier. You're going to be spiritually healthier. And I even like to take that phrase and kind of turn it around and say, man, if we do these things, we're going to have life in our years. We will have more life. We won't just endure and just kind of trudge through life. We'll have life in our years, and I think more years in our life. Verse 11, I guide you in the way of wisdom. I lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps won't be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Okay, has anybody in here made the philosophical decision to not run anymore? Like literally, you say, look, I'm old enough. I'm not running anymore. I don't like to run. I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm not running anymore. Okay, there's some of us in here that still are crazy enough to run. There's some of us that are young enough still to run. The reality is, any of us, whether we're walking or running, we don't want to stumble. It is no fun. I remember going out to Crowder sometime, and I'm like listening to music and running down, and you don't see like the little roots. They're just like an inch, and they're like dark, and you like boom, and you hit it, and you like tumble to the ground. You're like, so glad nobody saw that. Oh man, you're like limping to the car. You're like, I don't like stumbling. I don't want to stumble in my relationships, my finances, my thought process. I don't want to stumble. Solomon says, get this in you. It will help limit stumbling in your life. It says, hold on to instruction. Don't let it go. Guard it well. Is there what guard there? There's some of value here. Guard it well, for it's your life. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evil men. Now let me talk for a second about evil people. Because evil people are going to be a part of our lives. And God, through Solomon, is not saying, don't have anything to do with evil people. Because the reality is here at Vision, we love when evil people come to church. We love when evil people, when people that are far from God come in here and say, I want to learn some more about God. I want to learn some more about Jesus, this light. So he's not saying don't be a part of life with evil people. He is saying, though, you better be careful how they influence you. You're going to hear in today's testimony that evil people will take you somewhere you don't want to go. And to be fair, we were all evil people once. So I'm not judging people that are far from God. I'm saying we were all there. And if you're there today saying, well, man, I don't believe in God like you do. Again, I'm glad you're here. And God's words, not mine, is that being separated from God, there's evil. The reality is we're all struggling with sin, with life, with issues. So we're in this race together. But in terms of evil people and the path they take, do not walk on that path. It'll take you somewhere you don't want to go. So it continues, says, avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. For they, evil people, cannot sleep till they do evil. They're robbed of slumber till they make someone fall. They eat the bread of wickedness, drink the wine of violence. Now I love this verse 18. So one of the years it was the one I'd highlighted. It says, the path of the righteous is like the first gleam of dawn, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. Now, have we got anybody here who likes to go camping? Like tent camping? Like you got no power, no running water camping? We don't do that at our house. Okay? We have made like a contractual agreement, me and Meg, that we don't camp. Because when we camp, have you ever been there where you're in a tent and it's not comfortable and it's cold and like the Pop-Tarts and hot dogs like just didn't carry on long enough, and it's like it's the middle of the night and it's like 3 a.m, 4 a.m. And you're like, when are we going to see the gleam of dawn? Like, when is the sun coming up so we can go home to like carpet and running water and a bathroom? And you're like, you see it. You're like, hey, the sun's coming up. And she's like, pack it up. We're going home. You're like, the gleam of dawn. The gleam of dawn is there. There is hope. And sometimes if you've had a newborn and that night is going on forever, or you're sick and you're like, God, I need the day to come. That gleam of dawn comes. And you're like, thank God for that hope. So don't miss this. In our world, in our country that is getting darker and darker and eviler, the righteous, the ones who walk with God can shine like the gleam of dawn. You can do that in your world. When you say, I'm going to shine a light for Christ, people will say, wow, man, she is shining like the first gleam of dawn. This is good news. So Solomon talks about this, says, the path of the righteous is like the first gleam of dawn, shining ever brighter till the full light of day, but the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They don't know what makes them stumble. Now, I guess verse 20, and you get in conversations with people and you're telling them stuff, and they start getting either distracted or glossed over, or they're like checking their phone. And I think he's like, hey, pay attention. Make sure you don't miss the last couple verses. It says in verse 20, my son, pay attention. Make sure you're listening to this. Pay attention to what I say. Listen closely to my words. Don't let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to a man or woman's body. In verse 23, he dials it in. He's like, okay, we've been sitting around this campfire talking. We're going over the important things, all these different, gleam of dawn, all stuff like that. And he's like, okay, hey, above all else. He's like, hey, look me in the eyes. Like, don't miss this. Above anything else I'm telling you, above anything else you're jotting down, that you're thinking about, that's getting in your head, above all else, and I'm locking in. Saying, okay, this wise man is telling me, the number one thing, he says, is guard your heart. Guard your heart because it's the wellspring of life. Or some translations say that everything flows from it. He says, make sure you don't miss this, that your heart, the way it beats, the things that transform it and draw it, it's so important that you guard that. For it's the wellspring of life. Like literally, if you're out somewhere so thirsty and you're like, where's some water? And there's like a spring of water and you're like, oh my goodness, I would love some water that will save me, that will give me nourishment, that will keep me going. He said, your heart, it's that important too. It's that wellspring that everything else flows from. He says, above all else, guard that heart. And he goes to finish with a couple more verses. He says, put away perversity from your lips, from your mouth. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. So look, I'm giving you this path. Let's walk it. Let's take care of that heart. It says, make level paths for your feet. Take only ways that are firm. And then a swerve word again. I love it. It says, don't swerve. Don't swerve this way or that way. It said, don't swerve to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. And I sit back and say, wow, man, that's a lot. In fact, it's so much, I can't unpack all that. I unpack pieces of it. But I want you this week to open up Proverbs 4 and read it. Or get on your Bible app and listen to it in a couple different translations, maybe the Message and NIV, and let God speak to you about Proverbs 4 and above all else, guarding your heart. Well, you know, my story honestly isn't real glamorous. Like if I stood up here today and said, okay, guys, the things I've been through in my past, when I didn't guard my heart, oh man, it was terrible. Honestly, my story's not like that. My story, it was funny. A couple years ago in a small group with some couples, we were sharing about some things in our past, and I shared like 2 or 3 things, and they're like, ooh, Matt, you were so bad. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to manufacture something just to like sound like, you know, I did all these things. But this is so cool. Don't miss this. Your story matters so much in God's big story. Because I can't get up here today and manufacture things in my story to say, I used to not guard my heart, and now I guard my heart. God does, and it's better. You'd be like, that's really pretty vanilla. But when we take your story and it fits on the right time, in the right message, in the right way, it just flourishes. So I want you to welcome up our friend Tim Thomas, one of our visionaries, as he's going to share his story. All right, now Tim, as he comes on up here, I want to let you know, Tim is not naturally a Panthers fan, but last week, I admitted this even on Facebook Live last hour, the pastor was involved in a bet. Okay, I made a wager, and we bet on last week's game between the Niners and the Panthers and said, hey, whoever's team loses gets outfitted in that and gets a picture taken and stuff like that. So, hey, thanks for being a good sport and doing that. But so just, you know, he is 49ers fan at heart, but I don't know, man. Today, we're going to hear all kinds of things from your story that are cool. It's amazing what God's done. So, Tim, let's jump into it. You know, you're originally from California. So how about you fast forward to this age, this, you know, like teenage, young adult age, and you tell us about your life then with drugs, the law, things you're getting into. Just tell us, man.
I grew up in San Jose, California, and in high school was when I started experimenting with drugs. You know, one day after school, I was right after baseball practice. I was on the junior varsity team. My older brother was on the varsity team. He was my ride home. You know, he was always my ride home. That was my ride. Anyways, so we ended up going over to a buddy's house, more or less his friend or whatever, and we were over there, and I was like, all right, what's going on, you know, whatever, and next thing you know, they busted out with some weed, and you know, they started smoking, and I'm like, no, not for me, you know, but one of them, you know, sort of peer pressure, kind of bullied me, said, no, dude, you're gonna do it, you know, so I did it. It was you know, after that, it was like instant coolness. You know, I was part of that crowd. You know, I was going to parties and all that stuff. And, you know, one thing leads to another. You know, I experimented with that drug, and then, you know, I experimented with this other drug, and then another drug, and then next thing you know, I'm a full-on meth addict. You know, and, you know, methamphetamines took me to jail many, many times. It ended me up in prison. You know, where I can tell you this, is that was probably the scariest place I've ever been. You know, when you're in a place where you're out there on the yard with murderers and just, you name it, you know, and they're not locked away. They're with you. You know, I could be sitting, you could be a murderer, and I could be me. And I don't know that. And when you have to go to the bathroom on the yard in prison, you cannot go alone. Like, there's toilets right there. Right there. And you got to grab your buddy, and he's got to watch your back, because you don't know who's going to walk up and maybe stab you or attack you. And they don't care if they kill you or not, you know, because they're doing life for murder.
Right. And this season of life, you said, what, about 15 years? of the drugs and the law and all these different issues, 15 years. And, we talked this week, and you mentioned about the company you keep and how that truly impacts what is going to attack your heart or guard your heart or choose your pathways. So talk about the company you keep.
Well, I recently got baptized, and after getting baptized, I thought to myself, what do I need to change about Tim? What do I need to get right with God about Tim? And I said that, and I realized that, my worst thing is my swearing. And so, I realized that I swear more around certain people than I do other people. I swear with Tim. It's the company I keep, and for you guys, here, this guy at school or your buddy or whatever, and he just drinks or he just smokes weed or whatever. Well, you know what? And he's cool, right? But that guy knows this guy, and that guy knows this guy, and this guy takes pills, or this guy's doing other things or whatever. Next thing you're hanging out with that guy.
That's scary.
And you know what? And you just want to be cool, right? You just want to be cool. You want to be involved. You want to be liked or whatever. And I'll tell you right now, that's not the kind of cool you want to be.
Right. Yeah. Hearing Tim's story, I heard regrets, and particularly one, about, at the end of your dad's life. So we kind of give us a picture. What was going on there, what happened, and how you feel regret.
April 1st, 2006. This was no April Fool's joke. My mom came to me and told me that my dad had 3 weeks to live, that he just got diagnosed with cancer. And I was just really deep in my addiction at the time. And, she was like, you need to get to the hospital. You need to go see him while there's time. And so I said, all right, well, I'll go tomorrow. It's no big deal. Let's worry about Tim. Let's go get high first. Let's drown this. Let's push it down. And didn't go that day. The next morning she came and said, hey, come see Dad. Come see Dad. And I said, you know what? I'll get down there later. I'm not too worried about it. I wanted to get high. And later on that morning, I hear a banging at my door. And it was my little sister. And anytime she used to come and bang on my door was when I stole something from her, okay? And so I was like, what did I do now? So I opened the door, and she's crying. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, Dad died. And I was like, all right, let's go. Still, no emotion, no nothing, just, okay, he's dead, let's go. So then we get down there, I get to the hospital, I walk in the room, my mom's there, and I look over, and there's my dad, dead, and it didn't even look like him. He was green. He looked, it was gross, it's hard to explain. I still have the vision in my mind, and my mom said, go over there, say goodbye to your dad, give him a hug and a kiss, say goodbye. So did that, still no emotion, nothing. And then so the following days later, finally his funeral came up, and it was asked of us kids, me and my older brother, my younger brother, and my sister, to speak, something about my dad. And I didn't even prepare anything. I was just, I was in another place. And it wasn't until that time that I actually got up there in front of everybody, and the only thing that I could say was what came out of my heart, and it was, all I could say was it didn't matter what I did. He always cared about me. And then I just lost it, and left there. And then after the funeral, all I cared about was getting high.
Sure. Yeah. So I want you guys to understand that we're not trying to glamorize what he did. We're trying to understand in that season of his life, something had grabbed his heart. Some things had grabbed his heart, and were taking him down a pathway. We guys moved to North Carolina, and about a year and a half ago, they're getting accustomed to Gastonia. They see our banner about The Walking Dead, and this is so cool because we have a creative team that helps us design the concept of our series. I hadn't even seen The Walking Dead. And they're like, man, we got to do a series, The Walking Dead. And we put these topics together, having no idea that that would be like God's hook to catch Amy's eye, to catch your wife's eye. So that they started coming here, and I say they, but it wasn't Tim. Amy bringing the kids, including Harleah, who he said was 10 last year. Harleah says, you hope so? You think so? Check with Amy to make sure on the ages. And Harleah ends up going to kids camp. And at kids camp, Harleah accepts Christ at Crowder's Ridge. And so Harleah comes back, and we say, okay, we're going to have outdoor baptism. And so we have a baptism service, and Harleah gets baptized, by Meredith from our kids ministry. Before she gets baptized, though, I'm walking around the pool just to meet people in the time before it starts. And I go walking over there, and there's like 6 or 7 of them sitting on, lawn chairs, hanging out, whatever. And Tim's there with his Niners hat and his sunglasses. And honestly, to me, it kind of said, leave me alone. That was just the body energy. But I don't know. I just I'm going to meet everybody. And I mean, they're here for a reason. I was like, okay, Amy, and your daughter's getting baptized. So honestly, I thought they came to Vision. I just hadn't met them yet. But Tim was like, nah, church really isn't my thing. And I was like, what do you do? He said, I'm an electrician. I said, hey, we're going to have some projects coming up. Maybe you can quote us on those projects. And we leave. Well, I called him, I don't know, a week or two later. He comes up on a Saturday. We're hanging on the half wall over there just talking. And man, we just connected. Like an hour and a half. We're just talking. I'm like, man, we just connect with each other. I'm like, man, this is a friendship automatically. And so he comes in, he starts talking about some projects, and he's like, I can't remember your exact words. It's like, thanks for what you've done for my daughter. I'm going to donate my time. And I'm like, really? Okay, God's like doing something here. I said, well, I really would love for you to come and visit, on a Sunday morning. And, they had their family, coming to church, and they got, all them. And let's see if we have that picture yet. Pretty family. But honestly, he hadn't been a part of coming to church. So he starts coming to church. And why don't you just kind of explain maybe what God has done in you since you've been at Vision? And then I'll finish this up by reading a part of what you wrote for your baptism. So tell us, what's God been doing?
I wake up about every morning about 4 o'clock, and that's my time, and I just sit there and I meditate, and it's just me and my coffee and maybe some Facebook. And yesterday I read something that I wanted to share with you guys. It actually kind of ties into what you're doing right now with the journey. And it says this, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. And I thought about that a lot. I read this about 100 times since yesterday. And, and it really made me think, who does God want me to be? Who was God meant for me to be? And I'm just so grateful, for Vision Church, because this is a place where I can come and be comfortable and be Tim and be who God meant me to be.
Yes. So about a month ago, I went out of service, and I was talking to Scott and Sean, I think, and they brought out little Jackson. And they're like, man, Jackson accepted Christ. He wants to be baptized. That's his son. I was like, Jackson, man, that is so great. And Jackson said, well, I want my daddy to baptize me. So the next day or two, it was the next day, because I was like, man, this is important. So I called you the next day. I'm like, Tim, man, it's cool what God's doing in Jackson's life. He was like, yeah. And so to understand what happened from there, I want to read you what he wrote on his baptism testimony sheet. Tim said, my youngest son asked if I would baptize him, and I said that I couldn't because I had not been baptized. His feelings got hurt, which made me think, I love this. Do I want to get baptized? Do I deserve to get baptized? I will never forget that. I didn't want to do it for him because that would be wrong. It needs to be for me. It needs to be for God. I need to do this for Jesus. I've done a lot of wrong in my past. Admitting that I'm a sinner is not hard. I have chosen to accept Jesus Christ as my Savior. Doing this with my son makes it even more special. So to wrap this up, I want you to think about last week's bottom line, which totally fits with what you just read. The purpose of life is to have a relationship with God and live out his vision for your life. That's what it all boils down to. That's what God was thinking back when you were in California, saying, Tim, I'm trying to get your heart, man. Something's got your heart. I got to get your heart so you can live out my vision for your life. And in today's bottom line is, above all else, guard your heart. Because what controls your heart controls your life. It's not complicated, but the reality is, in one season of life, something was controlling his heart. It was controlling his life. And now, he didn't get it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. But God is controlling our hearts. God is controlling our life.